Hello again. Quick video here because I saw an answer to a video to a new member of the vinyl community. Calls himself JungMaestro, and he put up a quite interesting record thread here that I saw that Jonas SublimMedia had answered it, so I thought, well, why not? There are 5 questions. The first one, what's your favorite record label and why? I think I've answered this question before in another record thread, but I can repeat it because it's the label Manifest. Let's see if we can zoom it in like that. And that's a local record label. I come from northern Sweden, and this label was based in the same town where I grew up, Luleå, and it existed between 1974 up until 1985, I think. And they recorded folk music, they recorded theater music, progressive music, jazz, and all in all, and rock roll too. And all in all, they had a quite good or high level on the music, often with a left-wing political theme. But of course, in northern Sweden, we tend to have left-wing ideals, and I'll get back to that label later when I talk about one of the other questions. Anyway, this is the label of the first issue with the group Anton Svedberg's Sväng Gäng from 1975, and the flip side is totally opposite. This is white with black text, and this is black with white text, and also the actual label or Manifest logo is mirrored there. Okay, never mind. Yeah, that's the answer to the first question. Second question, what's a label that you dislike and why? That is a very good question because, well, I am a peaceful man. I can enjoy lots of different music on lots of different labels, and I can't say that I dislike any of these major big companies, because after all, very much good music has been released as well as a lot of cack, but still. But I can mention some different labels that I tend to find a lot here in Sweden when I'm searching through record crates, when I'm crate digging. And those are the Swedish religious Christian record labels. I don't even know any. Well, I can mention a couple of names that I remember right now. It's called Prim, Signatur, Cavatina, och Hemmets Herald. And I can't show you any examples of them because I don't have any and I don't want any. Thanks a lot. And why do I dislike them? Well, first of all, the material on them is totally boring and uninteresting. I mean, I can find, I'm not a religious man, but I can find interesting religious music from, well, let's say United States. I mean, really good gospel and such things. Although I'm not a real gospel fan, but Swedish Christian white religious music is incredibly boring. I'm sorry if I offend anybody by saying so, but so that's one reason why I dislike it. And the other reason is you find them everywhere. People bought them in thousands. you find them in almost every bloody record crate. You find any of these records. Music-wise, they are, well, let's say the king of easy listening, James Last, and his party records, non-stop party dancing, or whatever they are called. They are musically progressive if you compare it to these Swedish Christian rubbish. Okay, so let's move on. Name some albums you would like to be reissued. Well, first of all, I'm not really an expert on these, because many of the records I have, I don't know whether they are reissued or not, and so especially when it comes to international and American and British pop or jazz or whatever. So I had to focus here on Swedish records that I don't think have been reissued. Some of the material have been reissued on the compilation albums, but all in all, the material has not been reissued on CD or anything else. And I don't know if it is available on well, places like Spotify or stuff like that. Well, first of all, almost all the material from the label I've just mentioned, Manifest, has not been reissued. And this is the record I just showed. It looks a bit worn, and it is a bit worn, but it's a wonderful album. And I could even, when I talk about this album, I may have talked about this before in this blog, I'm quite sure of it. There is a record that I not only would like to see reissued. Well, it can't be reissued because it's never been issued. There are albums that I wish existed, and that is one example is an album with the singer and songwriter Per-Olof Åström, who came from the same small village as my family, who was a very talented singer and songwriter. He sings on 2 songs on this album, and he died much too early, and he had a rather problematic and very short life, and he was so talented. And I really wish there was more material of him available for us, because the few things I've heard has been so good, so good. And he is a bit of a cult figure in the music movement. All right, sorry. This one I don't know if it hasn't been reissued, and it was issued on CD and LP back then, but it's 21 years ago. It's the Swedish pop group Farbror Blå, Utan Filter. They made 2 albums. The music here is very quite easy, accessible pop in the Elvis Costello inspired music style, with quite clever lyrics. I like the lyrics a lot. And the main composer here, Peter Kvint, is one of the most popular composers in the Swedish Eurovision Song Contest events nowadays, although I don't think he's won it yet. I don't know. They made 2 albums, Farbror Blå, and this is the first one. And I like them very much, because, well, I'm a great fan of both clever lyrics and Elvis Costello. Okay. Oops. Oh, that was a bad mistake to keep there. I put it there instead. Then another group that were active in the 80s. Lots of their material has been released, or some of the material has been released on a compilation CD around 15 years ago. But this group is called Aston Reivers Rivaler. They made 4 or 5 LPs in the late 70s, early 80s. This is their second album, Creole. And they were actually a large group. They were actually, in the beginning, buskers, people who played out in the streets together, and they got pulled in by a record company who recorded them. On the album they made after this, they had a great hit called Tvål too. And you can mention Magnus Lind, singer and accordion player, and Anders Åborg, also singer and guitar and banjo player. And you can also mention Percussion, who's one of the great, most famous percussion players in the Swedish music industry. This was released by Musiklaget in 1980, the year after they went to the more commercially successful label Metronome. And they had their big hit then. Okay, time for another person who really should be available on CD or any in your... It's... and this artist also has a great nostalgic meaning to me. It's the bass singer PRS Axl, who made 4 albums for Polydor. He was the singer of the group Family 4 in the early 70s, who represented Sweden 2 times in the Eurovision Song Contest. And after that he showed that he was a great songwriter, and also these albums are very good, very well produced by Leif Karlqvist, who was the leader of the today very sought after orchestra Gimmicks. And this record was my grandmother's favorite, and well, I like it too. It's very nice, and I think a lot of my childhood whenever I listen to this. PRS Axl sadly passed away just shortly before he was going to do his great comeback as an artist. He was on the Estonia ship that sunk in 1994. He was performing there, and he was one of the persons who drowned in that disaster. Oh yeah, I talked about Percussion, or Per Tjärnberg as his real name was. And here we have a very good solo album with him, and it's called just Percussion, with well, a lot of musicians from Aston Reimers Rivaler, and also Peps Persson and the Dagvag guitar player Silver Surfar. And well, the jazz saxophone player Christer Bostedt. A great lineup here. This was released in 1981 by MNW, the Musiknet of Vaxholm, and I don't think this has been released on CD as well. I focus on the Swedish records here because then I'm sure whether they have been reissued or not. This next album was released originally in 1991, so it was released on both CD and vinyl. But I'm quite sure that it's quite hard to get hold of today. It's the group Traste Lindéns Quintet. I listened a lot to this when I was a teenager. Jolly Bob går i land. A bit of a rocking sound, but with quite acoustic, with accordions and a folk-like sound, and good compositions and great musicians like Håkan Ahlström and Miklos Fleckman, and yeah, Traste Lindén himself, of course. Yeah. Okay, we had a record label in the 70s called UTF, and they made lots of records, but most of them have not been issued on CD. I don't think this has been issued on CD. Tommy Broman, Efter Midnatt, a very good album with great musicians like, well, Björn Jesson Lind, Rolf Alex, Fernando Gassama, and Janne Bendela. Yeah, great musician, a great guitar player. He's not with us anymore, Tommy Broman, but this album is, I like it very much. Should be available on CD. And in some cases it might be, but I don't think it is. Another great singer-songwriter, late 60s, Håke Franzén, Visa från Djupvik. This is sometimes regarded as one of the first Swedish language rock or pop rock albums. Although it's quite acoustic, but it's very varied. He wrote these songs when he was in jail for refusing to do his military service. and I think it's very good. It's should be available on CD too. This was released by Mercury back in 1969, I think. Okay, another Manifest album. This Swedish group Racheal, one of my favorite groups. A bit of a mix between the Swedish Rolling Stones and The Band. This was the first album. I think they made 4 all in all. First 3 were issued on Manifest, and sadly not available on CD. Another group from the northern Sweden. Well, the rest of the groups I'm going to talk about here are from the northern Sweden, and I've seen them live. This is a folk music group called Ipanema. This is their 3rd album, and their best album, in my view, Vår Vinter. They were based on fiddles and harmonium, and lots of joy playing. And this was released on a small label called Cilium. I've never seen of it or heard of it. Well, maybe 1 or 2 other issues of this label from 1987. And the Swedish progressive folk music group, well, they are quite difficult to describe unless you've heard them, called Norrlåtar. This is an album from 1987, Känslans Partisan, on the MNW label, and I have been a great fan of this since I bought it and when it was new in 1987, and this is one of the best albums I've got that I've listened to most during the years. Should be available on CD. Some of the tracks are on different compilation CDs. Many of them with quite bad. They have not transferred the actual master tapes. They have used the LP vinyl copies, and that's not a good idea, really. And not very good vinyl copy either. Okay. Alright. Name some albums that are high on your want list. Well, I can mention lots of albums. But I thought, well, I'll stick to the Swedish theme here. And I got here a quite good book called 99 proggplattor that presents 99 good progressive albums with quite nice articles. And I picked a couple of ones here that I got many of the albums in this book, but there are some that I haven't got hold of yet. One of them is this double album here, Festen på Gärdet, which is like a Swedish Woodstock from 1970, a double album. Sorry, with different groups playing out at Gärdet in Stockholm. Yeah. And next album, I don't think I'll ever find it, but I'm so curious to just listen to what it sounds like. It's a man called Joakim Skogsberg. Oh, all the Swedish people who are into prog music know what record I'm talking about. Sorry. It's this one, Jola Rota, on the Metronome subsidiary label Gump. All the issues on Gump, I think it's only 7 or 8 ones that were released. All of them are incredibly rare and incredibly sought after by collectors. So if this ever turns up, it will probably be extremely expensive. But also, I don't know if I'm really willing to pay that much for it, but I'm very curious because it's the description of it in this book is, well, I really want to listen to this. Okay, well, another one that would be nice to have is Egba Jungle Jam. I've got lots of other records that I would like, but those are some examples. Okay, number 5. Are any of the Warner Brothers reissues of Metallica worth buying? Well, let's say, well, I can state it like this. I don't have any Metallica album, and I have no idea what to answer that. I can't answer that because it is. I have no idea. I'm not a Metallica fan, so I've never heard much of Metallica's music, and I haven't heard any reissues. It's not the kind of music I'm very interested in. So I leave that question open. But if you find Metallica's music interesting and you don't have the original issues, then some reissues would be nice to buy if they are not that expensive. That would be my very boring answer there. Okay, well, that's it for now. Hope somebody found it slightly interesting. Bye-bye.